about is setting a budget for your college freshman. And Kelly, I know what happens. We played this game. Your freshman is out there having a really good time. Now with COVID, this might be a little bit different, but I know we sometimes get some surprise charges on our credit, or the emergency credit card for Uber and some other things that we weren't expecting. So what kind of direction can you give to families of freshmen in college around this budgeting process?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I think that parents need to do is for themselves set a budget amount that they're willing to give to their child that's not going to hurt them financially. So how much can they contribute to their child's living expenses every month, that without dipping into their retirement or anything like that. And so come up with that number, and that's the number that their student needs to work with, whether that mean that they also have to get a part-time job or something like that. That's the first step.
Well, and let's face it, we're already paying, we being the family somehow, is already paying for room and board.
Yeah.
Food's provided.
Yeah.
So, we've got, stuff out there that we want the kids to have fun and go out and do some fun things, right? And they've got to buy clothes sometimes and that kind of stuff. So do you have any gauge on, what that dollar amount should be?
It really depends on each family, what they are comfortable contributing, what they can contribute, what the situation is with the student. Are they living at home? Are they on their own? Are they far away from home? Are they just down the street? That's something that I think is really personal to every family as far as that specific number goes.
Okay. All right. So as a freshman, what types of things do you think that they need to include on that budget?
So, you mentioned food, but obviously they're going to still want to go out sometimes with their friends, that sort of thing. So I would do maybe an entertainment budget, clothing, transportation. However, maybe they have their car with them, maybe they're taking the bus. So you're going to need to look at your students' needs and kind of put those things in and talk to them about it. They've been at school for a few months now. They've run into situations where they're needing money. And so those are things that can be, brought to the table with the planning session and just work out a number that kind of covers those things, but to a certain degree. Not, we don't want to go overboard. We don't want to give them everything they ever wanted, because that's part of the college experience, right? Struggling a little bit, not right. We all have to pay our dues in life, and this is part of their time.
Yeah, and don't forget to add in their parking tickets, because if you live on a college campus, you're gonna have parking tickets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Whether moms and dads know it yet or not, they're getting parking tickets. All right, so talk about then so we get the budget, we hit the middle of the month, and we get that phone call. How do we handle that?
You're just going to need to tell them that you're sorry they're out of money. And this is hard. This is a really hard lesson. This is hard for us as parents to watch them go through. But this is the reality of life, right? When our paycheck is gone, it's gone. And they need to understand that too, that when their allowance or whatever we're calling that money is gone, it's gone. And so they're going to have to learn it's definitely going to wake up call. The following month, they'll definitely be more careful about how they manage that money once they've experienced that pain of having to do without for a couple of weeks.
Right. And I think it also begs the thought or the question on how you're going to handle it up front so that the expectations are set and you don't give, right? You say, okay, this is the dollar amount and make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. If they know it's coming, then it won't be a shock when they call you and you still say no. The other thing you can do to help them is to strategize, so you're overspending on going out to eat. What's the problem here? Let's learn to cook spaghetti. Let's figure out the cheapest places you can go out to eat, that sort of thing. So help them strategize some ways to cut back. Don't just say, you're out of money. Let's talk about what are we going to do now for the rest of the 2 weeks to make this doable.
Right. And we've talked before on this show and about taking this time as a parent to be the consultant, not to be, the manager. So it's asking questions. It's like you said, what can we do? you have, or, what's the best strategy, and let them come up with the answers. I think that's really smart.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So how about now my dear son, both of them, they've come to me and they said, Mom, it's just not enough. How do we justify?
I think it's really helpful for the student to have a tracking system. So some sort of app tied to their bank account that's going to allow them to see their expenses. And this helps them in a couple of ways, right? So first of all, they're not going to get caught off guard when their entertainment budget starts to run really low. And then secondly, it helps them to come to the table and say, look, I went out to dinner twice and it cost me this much. Maybe we can up the budget a little bit, or maybe we can tweak it in this way, or that sort of thing. So I think that a tracking app that ties to a bank account can be really helpful. Something like Mint or YNAB, which stands for You Need a Budget, or EveryDollar. And I'm not necessarily saying that the parents should be logged in there watching every dollar that their child spends, but it's helpful for the student so that they can monitor their own spending. Because how many times as adults have we gone to the store and kind of been surprised by how much we spent while we were there, right? So even much more so for them who don't have as much life experience as we do.
Yes, well, and okay, I will give you another little parent tip. And if anybody's on the line right now and you want to chime in, please chime in. We are glad to have you asking questions of Kelly. But here's a little something that we've learned. When there are the Uber charges, and I'm going to just keep picking on Uber just because I feel like when there are Uber charges, usually they're not by themselves.
Yeah.
So you get the charge and they get the cash, they get the Venmo, they get the PayPal from their buddies paying back for that ride. So just a little parent tip.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then, okay, we get to the end of a month, we get to the end of the semester.
Yep. And it's important to revisit all of this, right? So a budget, even for the adults, a budget is not a one and done kind of thing. It needs to be tweaked every month for us because birthdays come up, holidays, car trouble, that sort of thing. Same situation for our kids, right? Like they had an extra charge for a class or something like that wasn't expected. And so revisiting this on a regular basis is really important. Now, that doesn't mean that every time you give in and you give them extra money, but it does mean that we're coming to the table open-minded, seeing, what's coming up that we need to plan for, or what happened last time that we can maybe avoid this next time, that sort of thing. So revisiting that often is going to save a lot of heartache.
For sure. And I would tell you, so I know there's lots of studies done on kids and if they should have a job in college. And the sweet spot that I'm seeing in all the research is having 15 hours a week. It actually makes them better students because they have to manage their time better. Yep. And I think, I know freshman year, that's always a little bit tough because you want them to acclimate, you want them to, get used to this new world they're living in. But I'd say that second semester of freshman year, again, depending on the kid, but I think that would be fair game to start thinking about, do we get a job?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I worked during college and it's totally doable. Totally doable.
It is doable. I did too. And another parent tip, I'll just throw it out there because once you've gone through a couple of these kiddos, you've kind of heard it all. Nobody else, Mom, has a job.
Yeah.
Yes, they do, because we talk to moms and dads too, and they do have jobs. So don't believe that. Yeah, and it's interesting as I've seen my kids get older, they also seem to enjoy the jobs. After they've gotten into it, because it's another way to meet new people. They have their own money. They don't have to come to you and be asking for money. And I think they get a real boost just from that, a confidence boost that they feel like they're contributing and they have control over what their life looks like.
Absolutely. It's so important that they have some skin in the game, right? Otherwise it's too easy to just skate by or even to quit if they want to, unless they've got some skin in the game.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. If anybody is on the call, I see we've got some viewers now. If you have any questions for Kelly regarding how to help your freshman budget, please chime in. So now we're past freshman year. We're getting to being a sophomore, a junior, a senior. How does this process change?
So I would say, the freshman year, when we talk about that budget amount, you might want to go really deep and assign like numbers, like this much for food every month, this much for clothing, this much, just to help them, just to help guide them. But as they get older, I would cut that out and say, okay, here's your chunk for the month. You use it however you see fit. And maybe that chunk gets smaller over time as they get closer to graduation and they start taking on more of their own expenses. So just some of different ways to, we're slowly releasing the reins, right? And so, at the beginning, maybe it's very tight. Maybe you are in that app and you're and watching the spending and guiding them. But I would definitely, by the end, they should be managing, all of it by themselves and getting ready to be cut off completely.
Yes. And I'll tell you, I'm a little bit more hardcore than that. When they were freshmen, I was like, here's what you get. Make it work. So again, it just is based on your family and where your kiddo is as far as have they ever had to do that before? And if they haven't, then let's start out slow and get them through it. But definitely we got to get these kids ready to be functioning humans when they get out of college. So
yeah, that's the goal, right?
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, Kelly, I appreciate it. And anybody that's watching after the live, please put your questions in for Kelly and we will make sure to answer all those for you. If you're interested in Kelly's program, the Smart Money Academy, where she helps students figure out budgeting and how to work with money, please reach out to her. As always, you can reach me at kristenclark.com, and I help students figure out a career path after high school. So all of this slides right into that.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks, Kelly.